Hello and welcome to episode 177 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's show is sponsored by Omnipod, the tubeless insulin pump that Arden has been wearing for a decade, and by Dexcom, makers of the G6 continuous glucose monitor, now FDA permitted for 0 finger sticks. I'm at a bit of a loss for how to describe today's episode because it is incredibly uplifting, but at the same time, it could be difficult to listen to at times. Today I speak with Ella. She's a young person in her 20s who has type 1 diabetes, but who also has a host of other medical conditions. As you listen to Ella describe her day and what she needs to do to stay healthy and safe, it's going to be a little overwhelming for you. But I think Ella's life offers a perspective that would be difficult for many of us to gain. So I hope you listen. She's really a rather remarkable person. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making changes to your medical plan.
My name is Ella. I'm 23 years old. I've had type 1 diabetes since September 26, 1997. And I have some other complex health conditions. But aside from those, I have a lot of hobbies that I love to do. One of them is volunteering. I love volunteering at any opportunity I get. Either the Red Cross, the ADA, JDRF, anything I can do, or just helping a friend in need out. That's what I love to do. I live for it. I live for helping other people. And I also love rock climbing. And before I got sick, I loved swimming.
Well, I definitely get the sense from you online that you're a person who likes to help other people.
Yeah.
I don't understand climbing up rocks. That seems insane, but I'm happy for you if you love it. And why can't? And I'm going to ask you later why you don't love swimming as much since you have been diagnosed. But first, I guess let me start by saying this. We don't know each other, you and I. I'm aware of you. I'm aware of you through Facebook. That's how I'm aware of who you are, right? And what I would say is that, social media is really interesting. You hear people say all the time, like, you only see the best of people on Facebook, right? They take 17 pictures of themselves before they get the exact right angle, and that's the one you see. And if their kid does something at a sport, they don't show you the 6 things they mess up, just the one thing they did that was really good. And to me, that's just a bigger idea that we don't share every split second of our lives. We're just sharing the stuff we think other people might be interested in, or we're interested in other people knowing about. Having said that, from my perspective, considering that if you posted 100 times a month, and I don't know how many times you do, that I would probably only see it a handful of times anyway because of the way the Facebook works and everything. I have a very slim idea of who you are from this. But it does seem to me that you are in and out of different situations that are probably not optimal health-wise. Like I see you in the hospital a lot, or in need of help or things like that. And so we're going to really kind of drill down and understand why that is, and why you're so open about sharing about it and stuff like that. So it's excellent. So let's start slow. You were diagnosed. I did some fast math while you were talking. Were you 11 years old?
It was 9/26/97, so I was 2 years old.
2. My math is terrible. So, all right.
It's okay.
I might have heard 2007, which would have made more sense with my answer. Anyway.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's my fault. I'm terrible. So 2 years old, which is how old my daughter was when she was diagnosed. Where were you living at the time? Do you live in America?
Yes.
And have you ever lived overseas?
Yeah.
Okay. So where were you when you were diagnosed?
I was so little. It was like right after my parents got divorced.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure.
I understand that. Who are you living with at the time? Is it your mom or your dad, or are you splitting time?
We live with my mom and my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
My mom had to work all the time, so my grandma would drive us to all the appointments and kind of raise us.
Right.
And my mom would, do what she could.
So was your grandmother kind of your primary caregiver for diabetes in the early part of your life? She was.
My grandma was the role of a full-time mom for me.
Okay.
I lost her 3 days before my 14th birthday.
Before your 14th birthday?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So she's your primary, caregiver for diabetes and in life in general. So it's like losing your mom, I would imagine. And were you self-sufficient with your diabetes at 14 or no? Did that really kind of throw things into...
I had to learn everything by the time I was 7. So at 7 years, I started checking my blood sugar by myself when I was 3 or 4. I started being able to do my own injections at age 7, actually after diabetes camp. So after diabetes camp, the thing about camp is what's so amazing is you're having fun, but you're learning at the same time. And so kids will, go to camp on a Sunday, and by that Friday, you have someone, they're doing their own injections, they're changing their own pump site, they're able to calculate their dose. So, one or the other, all three or whatever it is. But that's the beautiful thing about camp. And camp taught me not just how to manage my diabetes, it also gave me every skill I really was going to need in life, from being able to overcome any challenge that lay before you, to working as a team, to just knowing you're not alone, and that even if you feel like you're the only person in the world who feels a certain way, chances are you're not.
Yeah. That's a real confidence that it's hard to kind of gain on your own sometimes. And it's so much easier to get it from somebody else who already kind of knows what you're going through and is able to kind of mirror it back to you. So,
yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So 2 years old, 20 some years ago, obviously not a lot of technology going on probably at the time. You had a meter, I'm guessing, ish.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. Was it a crazy meter? What did it do?
It was the AccuCheck. I can't remember what it looks like, but I don't know what it's called. But it took 45 seconds for a meter result. 45 seconds. And you had to have this little, chip card thing to put in the meter, because they didn't have the codes that you would scroll to for those of anyone who's newly diagnosed or newer to type 1. Back in the day, before they had all these meters that were got nervous.
No, coded to the strips, right?
You had to put in code 25 for one touch.
Right.
You had to put in code 16 for freestyle. And back in that day, you couldn't even just scroll up or down to the code. You had to actually take this little chip card and put it in the meter, and you could only use those strips with that SIM chip card thing. And I'm allergic to a lot of insulin, so I honestly don't know what the long-acting was, but I was on Humalog pretty quickly because I did not respond well to regular.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2000, I remember in kindergarten, that was the big thing. We went on Lantus, and that was so different because we could eat whenever we wanted. We just had to take a shot.
Yeah.
But it did mean a lot more shots. So I was on that until I was 13, and then on January 29th, 2008, I actually began pumping with the Omnipod.
Okay, so now, all right, that's great. Well, first of all, what I heard was how exciting it was in kindergarten to be on Lantis, which is it's not everybody's kindergarten excitement story, that's for sure, but it did open up your life, so that's pretty cool. So how did you find like those first years living with type 1? Did you feel burdened by it, or was it just kind of how things were for you? How did you kind of react to it?
I don't really know because I was 2.
But as you got older.
As I got older, I've just always been really in tune with my body, and I've always have had an advanced, like, extreme amount of research since a young age. Like, I was that kid that would come home, get off the bus, get on the computer, and start doing research.
Just trying to figure out things that would help you or things that would benefit your health, or like that kind of just trying to understand the whole thing in a greater detail?
I wanted to be a nurse from, like, I just knew, like, my whole life, I just knew that I was destined to be a nurse. My grandma was a nurse, and my grandfather was a quadriplegic. So growing up, I often would have to help care for my grandpa, and I loved it. So when I was little, I would like to do research, not just on diabetes products, but I also would do research on just medical conditions, like leukemias, like the cancers, and some rare chromosomal disorders. So
you were just trying to figure out like medical stuff in general. You were just really interested by it all.
I just wanted to learn.
That's cool. That's excellent. So, all right. Now, you're not a nurse now, I would imagine, right?
No.
So tell me what happened. So what was your first complication with diabetes?
So that's an interesting one. My A1Cs they have been in the 6.5 to 7.7 range for the past 10 plus years.
Okay.
When I was little and I was on injections, I had mainly 8s and a couple 9s. But those were few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that reason was shots they're just impossible to meet my medical needs. I know a lot of people are pretty good with MDI, but the pump made a huge difference. And that it's actually been life-changing for me, and I would never go back. I was getting ready for RN school. It was August 2014. It was going to be my second year of college, and I went from never having a hospital admit, really never going to the hospital, not just like no ER trips, no admits, nothing, until suddenly on August 11th, 2014, my blood sugar was really high, and I had like small P ketones, but it didn't matter how much I was drinking. I kept throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. We went to the hospital at that point because I was scared I was going to go into DKA.
Right.
And that at that point, I was admitted that night. That was just the first of many.
I was just standing last night with former Major League Baseball player Sam Fold. Sam's had type 1 diabetes since he was 10 years old. And one of the first things he did when he saw me was yank up his shirt and show me his new Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. He said it had changed his life. But this ad is not about the Dexcom. It's about the Omnipod. Because I said to Sam, what's next? You gonna get a pump? And he said, yeah, I think so. And I told Sam the same exact thing I'm gonna tell you right now. You should look into an Omnipod. I told Sam that Arden has been wearing an Omnipod for a decade since she was 4 years old. She just turned 14 the other day. She's never once felt constricted with tubing or held back from swimming or showering. It's absolutely spectacular. Each and every day we use the functions on the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump to make adjustments to Arden's basal rates, her boluses. It is absolutely 100% the key, the focus, the chi and the now of how we have kept Arden's A1C between 5.6 and 6.2 for now over 4 years. That's what I told Sam Fold. That's what I'm telling you. Go to myomnipod.com/juicebox or click on the links in your show notes or at juiceboxpodcast.com to get a free, no obligation demo pod sent to you directly at your home. That's right, Omnipod will send you a pod that you can try on, wear, see, feel, touch, love, caress even. I don't know what you're going to do with it once you get it there. But you'll be able to try it, wear it, and see what you think. And then if you want to move forward, Omnipod makes the entire process super simple. myomnipod.com/juicebox with the links in your show notes or juiceboxpodcast.com. Hey, Omnipod, I bet you didn't think you were going to get a small dog snoring behind your ad. Huh? You guys hear Basil today? He is really snoring up a storm. Okay, let's get back to Ella, hear about her first time going to the hospital and the many visits that followed.
That was just the first to come of many. I was diagnosed and began my journey with gastroparesis on August 11th, 2014.
So you're going along for, 18 years maybe, right in that range, like just cruising along. Even when your A1Cs weren't where you wanted them with MDI, they weren't terrible. They were still respectable A1Cs. You got on a pump, you got it down. Everything looks like it's going well. You're heading into college, and suddenly this happens. Is it fair to say that has it been an absolute kind of left turn? Did your life completely change at that point?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
And so I guess let's talk first about, not about gastroparesis. So basically we just did an episode recently with someone who was talking about their complications, Nicole. And so there's it's nerve damage, but through your digestive system. Is that that's the beginning of the idea, right? But then tell me how does that affect things with diabetes?
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to share about. So, and just so you know, I have not been declared whether it's complications or it's a secondary condition.
I understand.
And I can get into that after I touch up on the gastroparesis and how it affects my diabetes.
Okay,
so I would describe living with gastroparesis as having the stomach flu every day for the rest of your life. So I go through periods of time where I can't hold anything down, and I end up having to be on IV nutrition for months. And I actually have a central line. So I have a port. It's in my left side of my chest, and I have a needle that goes in there every week, and it's called accessing my port. So in addition to my insulin pump site change and my Dexcom change, I have to do my IV port needle once a week.
Okay.
And I will say this, type 1 diabetes was completely manageable, and I could live very freely with it. When you add gastroparesis to it, it's honestly, it's a at first it's a nightmare until you can adapt.
Okay.
So, for example, when my blood sugar goes high, I can't just drink a bunch of water and take a shot, do a site change. For a high, that means I got to do a blood sugar check. I got to do a blood ketone check. I have to get insulin on board, and I have to get a bag of IV fluids hung and go wide open, meaning it gets into me as fast as it can.
Why do all those extra things become necessary? Why doesn't just insulin do it at that point?
I'm prone to dehydration, so I have to wear my IV pump almost 24/7 because I'm on continuous IV fluids. But sorry about the clearing my throat.
Don't be sorry. You're fine.
Sorry about that.
No.
can't really just treat with insulin. Now, this isn't every high, but if I'm having a, 250 plus or if I'm 200 and I'm just rising really quickly, I'd like to actually, I really like to, be bold with insulin and fluids, because a lot of times I like to be proactive instead of reactive.
Right.
Because it just makes everything so much easier. And with the Dexcom, I'm able to see where I'm trending. And that is super helpful because that actually changes the course of the treatment plan. But as far as the IV fluids, the reason I have to be so aggressive with those, especially when my blood sugar is going high, is because I'm prone to DKA and metabolic acidosis. And so hydration is a huge thing.
Okay. And so let me jump in for a second, because I want to make sure I don't get lost, because I think I'm keeping up. So, excuse me. No, you're doing good. You really are. So you have a constant IV available to you. Like, you can, when you hang a bag, you can just do it. It's not like you have to get a needle then at the same time. Is that right?
Right. I just change it once a week.
Okay. So when you're bold, when you're aggressive, when your blood sugar starts jumping like that, you need to get insulin. You got to make sure that you're hydrated. You got to check your ketones, because when it goes bad all at once and really drastically. And you don't know. I go. Yeah, and when you don't know which one of those elevated blood sugars is going to lead to that, which one is just going to come down and be okay again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think I understand that part. Now, so how do the highs happen? Is it because of the difficulty understanding when your body's actually going to digest what you've eaten, and whether or not, like, because I'm assuming like your variables are crazy, right? Like, you could eat and get sick and then you wouldn't have the food in your system, or it could go in and not process for a really long time. And then if you put the insulin right then, the insulin might be way mistimed with when your body actually starts processing the food. How do you make those how do you make any of those decisions?
I don't eat much. It just depends on if I'm in a flare. So a flare means like when my stomach is totally not accepting food, it'll throw up everything, even an ice cube sometimes. When I am able to eat, I do have limited intake, but a lot of times it doesn't really hit my system. So I end up kind of bolusing hours later, and sometimes I don't even need to bolus. Sometimes it really doesn't even get to me. If I'm having a lot of carbs, though, I call it algorithm bolusing.
Okay.
So I'll do like a small dose, wait a bit, next dose, wait a bit, next dose, wait a bit. But it's not stacking insulin, it's just taking it safely. So if I throw up, I don't have to deal with the really bad low to follow. Okay.
So you're much more in tune with the concept of, like, when I talk about timing insulin, you're doing that on a much bigger exploded level, like drug out over much more time. How do you even? Yeah. So I don't want to bum you out, but the question pops in, like, how do you even get up the nerve to want to eat?
Honestly, it's evil. Our stomachs are evil, because my friends and I always say that, because we can be extremely hungry, but be so nauseous. So sometimes it's literally, I'm hungry and I'm so nauseous, I don't want to eat because I'm going to throw up, but I'm starving. Or am I hungry or am I nauseous? Come on, stomach, what do you want? Like, we never really know. It's just,
you just got to take
really
a shot.
Stinks.
Yeah, and you can't not. It's not like you can't not eat, but you do get nutrition through the port weekly.
From time from time to time, I do go on TPN. It's called Total Parenteral Nutrition. And that is where I get both nutrition, hydration, and like fats and proteins. So on a day-to-day basis, my body is running off saline and D5 normal saline. So is it okay if I talk about the lows a little bit?
No, do please. Trust me. You keep talking because I'm keeping up in my head, but my questions aren't coming as fast as they usually do because I'm processing a lot. So go ahead, please.
Okay. So my low blood sugars are so different, and honestly, that's probably one of the biggest hassles because when you're low, if you can just drink a juice box and be okay, you're good to go. You can be playing a sport, come over, drink a juice box, maybe temp basil if you need to for a bit, but then you're good to go.
Yeah.
With me, I have kind of a different story. So my lows, we start treating my lows under 120.
Okay.
So I have extremely crazy parameters. My parameters, where we like to be, is between 130 and 180.
Mm-hmm.
Because the lows hit me so hard. And it's pretty crazy. And I am mostly asymptomatic, but the Dexcom is key for me because it has saved my life over 280 something times in the past 2 years. So when I go low, I have to treat with IV dextrose. So I either have a D50 ampule, which is like this huge syringe filled with super concentrated, like IV, think of grape juice, like the IV version of grape juice. Like
okay.
So many carbs.
Does it hit you really fast?
I have to push it over 8 minutes or else it'll fail my Dexcom.
Okay.
But it does hit you within about 10 minutes. You can talk again and you're good.
Okay. So if you pushed it in too quickly, the Dexcom would fail to be able to read?
Yeah, the Dexcom would do those lovely question marks. And that's a headache and a half. And then if I don't calibrate within an hour after, then it'll just be fried and I'll have to change the whole Dexcom.
And so you figure out how to move the dextrose in to not cause it. Oh, hold on 1 second. Arden's texting about our lunch. Give me 1 second. I need to ask her how hungry she is.
No problem.
Thank you. We'll just keep recording as we do it. Okay, she's hungry. And let's think about our lunch. Wow, it seems like forever ago, but way back in episode 47 of the podcast. That is 130 episodes ago, I think. Anyway, a long time ago on the Juicebox Podcast, I interviewed then Oakland Athletics outfielder Sam Fold about his type 1 diabetes. Since then, Sam is retired. He's now a coach with the Philadelphia Phillies, my hometown Phillies. And last night, I got to go down to a game, take my son to see batting practice live on the field, thanks to Sam. So many, many thanks to Sam. But as you heard in the Omnipod ad, while we were there, Sam yanked up his shirt and showed me his new Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Now, if you go back to episode 47, when I spoke with Sam, he was on shots. He didn't have a CGM. He didn't have a pump. He had nothing. And I told him back then, Sam, you gotta try. And now he's using the G6, and he said to me, it changed my life. That quickly. In a month, he knew. How would you like your life to be changed? And I mean for the better, in a way that makes baseball players smile. Go to Dexcom.com/juicebox. Get into a world where you can make diabetes treatment decisions with 0 finger sticks, no calibrations, always know where your glucose number is and where it's going. That's what the Dexcom G6 can do for you. It's what it's doing for Sam. It's what it's doing for Arden. It's what it's doing for countless people living with type 1 diabetes. Be one of them. Dexcom.com/juicebox. The link's in your show notes or juiceboxpodcast.com. By the way, after the baseball season, Sam's going to come back on. We're going to talk again. Okay, she's hungry. And let's think about our lunch. I know what's in there, so I'm going to do this. 11 units. I have to extend it a little, but not a lot. She's a little higher than I want her to be right now, so let's do 20% now, and the rest over a half hour. Yeah, I was impressed with myself when I figured out this stuff, but your thing is way more difficult. How do you figure these things out, I guess? Because this is not something I would imagine that a doctor just comes in and goes, oh, here's how you handle this. It's probably a lot. I mean, your trial and error is probably insane, right?
I'm a lab rat, yes.
How involved are your doctors and healthcare people, and how much is just on you?
It all honestly kind of falls on my shoulders because I find what works, and then they're extremely supportive.
Okay.
So we have done a lot of experiments. One of them was actually we called it G pumping, glucagon pumping.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would take an Animas pump because they deliver 1 unit per second. It was the fastest delivery system. So at one point, I was putting glucagon in my Animas Vibe or Animas Hang and wearing that, and then just hooking up to bolus glucagon when my blood sugar would drop.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, wearing my other insulin pump, which would be probably like the T-Slim. And just kind of doing it like that. But unfortunately, the glucagon didn't end up working well for me at all because when you don't eat by mouth, you don't have the stored glycogen. And what a lot of people don't know is the glucagon, all it does is it's like sending a text message to your liver saying, yo, dump the stored glycogen.
Right.
Because it's not the actual sugar source. It just tries to trigger the liver to dump the stored glycogen to raise the blood sugar.
Okay.
So
if it's not there, if the storage isn't there, then there's nothing to release. And that's what you found out with trying to use glucagon.
Yeah. So if you can't eat enough by mouth, then glucagon's not going to help you. So that kind of stunk. So then we got to the point where I'd have D50 on hand at home. And then D50 became like the new glucagon.
Mm-hmm.
So what I use on a day-to-day basis, though, for lows is D5. So that is just a liter of fluid that has 5% dextrose in it. And just like an IV bag.
Right.
And then that one I just run really quickly for like 250 mLs.
Mm-hmm.
The irony, somewhere around a juice box amount of liquid, and then I recheck and correct as necessary.
And you said that you kind of said earlier, I want to make sure we hit it, that there's a difference between a complication from type 1 and just developing another disease. And so is there a feeling that this is just a development for you, that it's not type 1 caused, and how would you even know that, I guess?
So I don't have your typical peripheral neuropathy, autonomic neuropathy kind of case. I have multiple organ systems that are affected.
Okay.
So, like, I have dysautonomia, which is dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. So, my body has a very hard time regulating my heart rate, my temperature, my blood pressure, things along that nature, just vitals. My body does not do very well to adapting to the external environment.
Okay.
So if it's extremely hot outside, I don't sweat like a typical person.
Mm-hmm.
And my body literally cannot tolerate the heat, and I can pass out very quickly because my body can't regulate it, and it's really hard. That's just one example. So the gastroparesis is just a piece of the puzzle. The vagus nerve, are you familiar with that?
Vagal nerve?
Yeah.
Yes.
So your vagus nerve extends from your brain down pretty far, and it can affect your stomach and gastroparesis can be part of it. Your heart can be affected. Your respiratory system can be affected. And among other things, but I'll just keep it short.
No.
But, sorry, I'm checking my blood sugar really quick.
Go ahead, check your blood sugar. I'll wait. If I can't understand about needing to check your blood sugar, nobody would understand.
191, Fred. That's another thing that's so frustrating is some days I'll wake up, like, for example, 2 days ago, I woke up, I was like 355, and an hour later, I was 60-something.
Had you done anything? Up,
double arrows down, bam, just crashed. What?
Did you do anything to affect that 350, or it fell on its own?
I was asleep, and then I woke up, and I checked, and then, like, before I even had time to bolus, I was getting a double down on the Dexcom.
Wow. Yeah, so that's a pretty big swing, because what if you would have done something about it, right? And then it would have fallen on top of that, then you would have been in that situation where you need the Dexcom. Okay, I understand. So,
yeah.
All right, so type 1, gastroparesis, body has trouble regulating a lot of different functions. Anything else, so I can understand the whole picture?
I have... Wow. I also have pernicious anemia, which is autoimmune B12 deficiency. I have Tourette syndrome. I have severe iron deficiency anemia. I have PTSD. And I have severe vitamin D deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually just established with a doctor called a geneticist. Do you know what that is?
Looking back into the history of your family and your genetics, or maybe I'm wrong?
Essentially, yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
So that's just like the doctor name for, yes, that exactly. So they do a lot of like chromosomal disorders or, genetic disorders and such. And he sent testing for a condition called mitochondrial disease. And we are awaiting all those results to come back. But because of the complex history and everything that literally took me about 2 hours to cover everything with my doctor, he said that it's likely that I really do have mitochondrial disease. So blood work was drawn and we're waiting on those results.
What is the impact of that?
I'm going to quote one of my favorite kiddos. She explains it really, really well in her video, and her name is Amory. And she explains it like this. Every cell in our body, except red blood cells, have mitochondria. Mitochondria takes oxygen and food to create 90% of the energy our bodies need to sustain life. Mm-hmm. So mitochondrial disease occurs whenever the mitochondria fails to produce enough energy. That lack of energy leads to cell death and multiple organ failure. Multiple organ failure leads to the death to the person who is affected. End quote.
Well, that's not fun.
No, we don't have complete confirmation on it, but he was pretty confident that I have a mitochondrial disorder of some sort.
Okay, and so I'm sorry to if it becomes too much and you want to stop, just let me know. I don't know how much of just regurgitating what you go through every day is helpful to you, and how much of it might be because you said you have PTSD. I'm assuming the PTSD is from the panic of my blood sugar's falling and I'm gonna die. Like is that pretty much like after that happens to you enough times, it feels like
you go ahead. Say.
No, I don't know what to say next. So you go ahead and talk. I mean, that's my guess, but you tell me.
So the Dexcom itself has saved my life more than 280 plus times. Mm-hmm. So I was formerly living in my apartment up in New York, and not New York City, the boring part.
Not New York City, the boring part of New York. I got you.
And the one that no one's ever heard of. And then I recently moved to Tennessee.
Okay.
And prior to that, when I was living in New York, I lived alone. And unfortunately, family is a luxury, not a given.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've really been doing everything on my own for years throughout this journey. And so I would go to sleep and I would call my Dia stalkers, my Dexcom followers.
Mm-hmm.
I'd call them the Dia stalkers because they'd stalk my blood sugar.
Nice.
And then if I were to go low while I was sleeping, they would call my phone about, 20 to 50 times, depending. And if I didn't wake up, they would go ahead and dispatch EMS. And then the ambulance would come. My EMS teams would come in. They'd be like, Ella, wake up, you're low. Ella, you're low. Or all sorts of shit. And then sometimes I'd wake up a little bit and be totally out of it. They would just deliver the dextrose. My blood sugar would come up. And they'd be on their way.
That does sound like something that I would feel stressed about. For absolutely.
The first 5 times were horrifying. But then, in a way, you kind of feel like, all right, if I was going to die from a low blood sugar, it probably would have happened by now after all I've been through.
That's pretty hell. So
it's pretty crazy.
So instead of spending the last 20 minutes we have together just going over, I mean, I think we've got a fairly clear sense of, the scope and the impact of what's up. I don't know we know depth, but I think we understand it in total. So let me ask you some more personal questions instead.
Okay.
What is life like when this is your reality? Are you existing every day? Is it just get up and let me stay alive till the next day? But you did say you like rock climbing. So are there things that you go do? Is it day by day? I'm assuming you don't work. Maybe
I'm a full-time patient, yeah.
You're a full-time student.
I'm a full-time patient.
You're a full-time patient. That might be the title of this episode, by the way. But okay. So I would imagine that because, like I said, I know people who are on dialysis, and that's a full-time job.
Oh God, yeah.
Right. And so when you start adding all of these, I can't imagine you'd be, you're like, oh, and let me get a shift in here too. So I get that, right? But I'm trying to figure out for you because I've seen you in a couple of different modes. Like you do Facebook Live sometimes. And I've seen you in a couple of different modes. And I've seen bright, intelligent, thoughtful, loving, caring person trying to help other people. I've seen you in a panic. And I've seen you look so beat up that I was wondering how you even got the nerve up to like sit up. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so I'm wondering how like what is a day like? Do you know what I mean? Like how you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm really interested.
Break it down my week. A typical week, I have anywhere from 3 to as many as 6 to 8 doctor's appointments. So a typical day for me consists of I check my blood sugar roughly 15 to 20 times a day. Yes, I'm serious. Yes, I really do. I have the meter downloads to prove it. And my endocrinologist does. My script is literally written for 15 to 20 times a day. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there are days where I only test 10 or 12 times, but generally it's every 2 hours and then whenever needed. So every time I get behind the wheel, I test. When I wake up, I test. If I don't feel right, I test. And I do that as well as I wear the Dexcom G5. And the Dexcom G5 has been the piece that has really helped me navigate. It's the GPS for diabetes, I like to say.
Cool.
So that said, a typical day for me is I wake up, I push my nausea medication, Phenergan, through my port, and then I get my fluids set up, and I just kind of chill in bed until I'm feeling up to it. And then if I have to go to an appointment, I get ready. And I also do like the normal stuff. I, brush your teeth and, do your hair or whatever.
I would imagine. Yeah.
And then I, get my blood sugar to get where I want it to be. Well, at least try.
Mm-hmm.
And then then I come and take my morning meds after my nausea medicine kicked in, and then I get on with my day. So some days it's going for appointments. Other times I go to the store. Sometimes I go volunteer at an organization like the Red Cross or the ADA or JDRF.
Yeah.
Wherever I can help. I have worked with some kiddos in my area over the few years who are affected with type 1. And there's one little girl that I worked with, and her name is Noelle, and she and I have a really good time together. And so sometimes her mom would drop her off, and I would, we would just spend the day together, and it was easy because I've been a type 1 and I know how to take care of her, but she has come such a long way. She's on the pump now and she's thriving. And I loved having the opportunity to help out with her. So sometimes I do stuff like that. But there are days where I'm in bed and I'm not leaving the house and I don't feel good. And I go between my bed and the bathroom and my bed and the bathroom, and I'm super sick. And there are times where I get really tired of this. But one of the things I say is sometimes we cry a river, the bridge, and get over it and come out stronger on the other side.
That's an amazing attitude. Well, because
yeah.
So what do you have? Do you have like long-term goals for yourself, like things you are trying to get to? Or,
yes.
Okay. What are some of those things?
I still don't want anything to stop me from becoming an RN because I promised my grandma, literally as she took her last breath, that I wouldn't let anything stop me from becoming an RN. And that's where I call the blessing in brokenness. I would not ever have been this prepared for nursing school, let alone a career in nursing, if I didn't go through this. So I wish I didn't go through this, but I appreciate that it's made me as strong as and who I am today. And it's going to make clinical a breeze because I've spent over 600 days in the hospital since August 11th, 2014. So I've had the opportunity to learn as I go, which is why I'm completely independent with my medical care. So I'm hanging IV fluids, I'm pushing IV meds on a daily basis, but I also know how to do port care, and I know a lot.
Yeah,
so I kind of got to be my own lab rat.
Well, it's just you have a perspective that most people will never gain. I mean, honestly, like on just, on life, on what tough means, on what persistence means, on what, on what a lot of things, are at a much deeper level than the rest of us. Like, I mean, excuse me, I got a couple days ago and I didn't feel well a couple days in a row. And so the idea of laid up in bed and barely wanting to move and can't do all that stuff, I get that, but there's an expectation that that's going to end and that it won't start back up again. And so it seems like an inconvenience, not a reality to me. But yours is, I'm going to get through this and it's going to happen again. It's not going to not happen again. It's definitely is. And that's something that I just don't know that any of us can really imagine.
I'm on a quest. Starting in 2017, I wanted to find healthcare that was competent and able to meet my needs because I don't want this to be the reality for the rest of my life. I want to get whatever I can to be able to get my health stable. So another thing that really affects me is these vitamin deficiencies and minerals. So magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, and iron. Those affect me really badly, especially the B12. Like I was having neuro symptoms a little while ago, and it was actually because part of the contributing factor was my vitamin B12 was so low. It was in the 200s, whereas the neurologist wants it in the 500s.
Okay.
So that was really low, but that is just a piece of the puzzle. So ultimately, once I get all of these tests done, like I said, I relocated to Tennessee, and there's a lot of different specialists down there. And once I get all the testing complete, and we can find providers that can keep my levels stable, like my electrolytes, my nutrition, my iron. Once that's all stabilized, I'm going to be able to function, because when they are stable, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. I feel so alive. I feel like a human instead of like a walking carcass.
Yeah.
So
and so that's still a process that's ongoing. You're closer to doctors now that you think can help you get that into a better situation.
Yeah, and my goal is I want to get everything figured out. I want to get everything treated that needs to be treated, because come 2019, I want to go back to school. From day one, the first thing I wanted to say, the first thing I've said is, I can't wait to go back to school. I'm going back to school. I'm going to go back to school, because part of the reason I won't give up is because I had a dream to become a nurse, and I've transitioned that from a dream to a goal. And part of what gets me through every day, even the hard days, is definitely the support of what I call the family of friends. And a lot of the type 1 moms in my area have been just so amazing, and a type 1 support mom I met, and a lot of amazing friends. And through the community, through the type 1 support community, and through the chronic illness support community, I've been able to maintain a positive attitude. And going back, just brushing up on what you had mentioned about what I share what I do on Facebook, because if I can help one person realize that, hey, you can do this, or if I can, if there's one life that I can have an impact on, that's the greatest gift in the world. Then all of this was worth it. Then pushing on and everything is worth it, because bottom line, my ultimate goal in life is just to have a positive impact on as many lives as possible.
Well, I was going to say,
reduce the suffering in as many lives as possible.
I was going to say that I think that what you share on Facebook is you're probably in some way positively affecting more people than you might as a nurse, to be perfectly honest. Like, not that that's not still an amazing goal, but it's still, in the interim, you still are having that impact on people. Because it is completely impossible to even spend a couple of minutes watching what you're going through and not have those thoughts of, if she can do it, I can do it. That sort of thing. It really is. I don't know. I think it's really valuable for people to see, and therefore valuable for you to share. And that can't be something that's simple. Like, the first time you decided to tell people about this could not have been a fun or easy decision, I don't imagine. But I would imagine that everybody really appreciates it. I know that I do.
It's always really exciting to see when you jump on my lives. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's got better.
You're very nice. So I'm not doing anything near what you're doing, and it's just I don't know. Like, there's times I think about you a lot. So I don't reach out a lot, but you pop into my head a lot. So
really?
It's because you're very real while you're doing it, and there's no there's no pretense to it. I don't feel like you're acting a part, or just like, oh, people need to see me sick, or like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just very much there, and just very, it's just really honest. So I find it really valuable. I can't imagine other people don't as well. I don't even know how you have the nerve to do that. I don't have nearly the courage that you have. That's for certain. And as you describe your life day to day, it's difficult for me not to like interject my own thoughts over top of it and ask you, like, do you really?
Go ahead.
No, do you ever like feel like just giving up? Because I feel like it would make me like that, but at the same time, I haven't been down your path. So maybe your path would harden me along the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just seems like from my perspective, I don't know how you do that. Like, even like, I was going to make a joke earlier that you might be at least a great person to ask about Netflix because you have all this time in bed, but you don't even have time in bed. You're just bed, bathroom. It's not even like you can lay there and go, okay, I can't get up and get moving today, but at least I can binge watch Troll Hunters, which I think now is just an insight into what I just watched last on Netflix, a cartoon that I'm pretty sure is for 10-year-olds. But anyway, like, you know, do you consider, like, how much of this can I take, or do you know you can take it?
I'm not gonna lie. So in the beginning, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm so not ready for this. I'm not strong enough. And then the thing is, sometimes you don't realize how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. So I kind of keep the similar mindset like I do with type 1, honestly. And I just thank God every morning that I have another opportunity to, you know, to be in this world and to do something with it. And kind of honestly, every day for me is like a kid on Christmas morning. Every day that I get here is like as exciting as, you know, little kids get on Christmas morning, because it's another opportunity, and it's the greatest gift. The greatest gift is definitely time, and time with the people who you love most in this world. And there are times where I do get down, and I do need to, that's when I say I take a moment, buy myself a river, build a bridge, get over it. So I might, you know, I'm human, so I do take the time, take a few minutes, acknowledge what I'm feeling, maybe call one of my best friends or call a support person and be like, I'm so sick and tired of this. And then we end up laughing. And then I call that part building the bridge. And then we go ahead and, you know, we move on and, you know, keep going. And it comes down to, you can either laugh or you can cry. And if you can find a way to laugh, that's going to work out a lot better than crying for you in the long run. Mm-hmm. Because when you laugh, you're actually producing some hormones in your brain, and those do actually literally help reduce your suffering. So I do watch some TV shows, but I'm not really on Netflix a lot. I honestly am just not a big fan of a lot of like TV shows. I do like a couple like Bones and Castle, but those are fun. And I loved Foster. I felt like I could relate so much. But other than that,
that's it for you. Well, you know, it's funny. So we're wrapping up here coming up on an hour already, because you were really amazing. But I was thinking this morning about something completely disconnected from you. I was watching the news, or, you know, paying attention to the news, and there's a lot going on politically, and there's a lot of people being indicted, and things are going on like that. And it made me think of, if I was guilty, right? How long would I fight? Like, at what point would I say, you know what, you got me, I give up? And then I realized probably never. Like, if I did something and you caught me, I'd deny it right till the very end. And I think that's a human that is the human spirit in a funny way, right? Like the idea of, I'm not going to give up. I'm not giving up. You can kill me if you want, but I'm not giving up. I'm not going to be the one to say I'm done. It's just that the human mind and the human body, it wants nothing more than another minute. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that's the thing that most of us, that keeps most people going. It's you don't want to stop. And by stop, I mean, like, you don't want to not exist anymore in whatever form that might be. You want another second in the game, and you'll almost do anything for it. And as almost kind of despicable as that is in an illegal situation, it's also the same function that I heard you talk about for the last hour. And I can't believe that it's something that randomly popped in my head, and you basically talked about it all morning, which is like, you're not giving up. You know what I mean? Like, no. You went through. Excuse me, I've been sick, but you went through, you know, you've got type 1, you've got gastroparesis, all the things that you listed, and then possibly something else on top of that, I never heard you say, but I'm going to wave a white flag. Like I heard you say, I want another day. Like I want to get up. I want another shot at this. I want to try to fix it. I want to be better. I know there's a world where I feel better because I've been there. How do I get there and stay there so that I can make the most of every one of these days? At 23, you have like the perspective of like 1,000-year-old person. Do you know what I mean?
Thank
like
you.
No, it's amazing. I know some people you should talk to.
That'd be on it. That would be awesome.
Well, they should pay attention because there are some people that kind of perspective would be very, very valuable for a lot of us. So I really appreciate that you put it out in the world like this. Thank you very much. Is there anything I didn't ask you or anything you wanted to say that we didn't get to say?
I am not only on Facebook, I'm also on YouTube with Beating Type 1, and it's all lowercase, no space, BEATINGTYPE 1. And I was inspired by some of the early diabetes bloggers, and I also have a blog, which is bolusofhope.org.wordpress.com.
I'm going to get you to email me all your links, and I'll put them in the show notes so people can see them. Who was?
That would be awesome.
Did you have a blogger that? Now I said this, like I put myself in a corner.
I actually read yours.
Don't
when it was first kicking up.
I was going to say, don't say me. But is there someone that like that you saw that like or why? Let's say that you saw a blogger. What about them made you think, oh, I should do this too?
I was really inspired by Carrie Marone Sparling and Diabetic Danica.
Okay. Yeah, those are two good ones. I could easily see being inspired by both of them. Danica does such a great job on YouTube. And and Carrie is a machine of like honesty. Like she blogs like it's really something. I know that you would probably, I don't know how you would say this for sure, but I think Carrie's probably got one of the oldest, if not the oldest, type 1 diabetes.
Yes, I believe it was 2005.
Yeah, like I think it was her, then Scott Johnson. I know I came in sometime after that, around 2000, early 2007, and there were some other ones in there too, but you're really talking about a smattering of these blogs. I joked with somebody the other day that I had a blog back before people knew what a blog was, and I've had one so long no one even cares what a blog is anymore. So I somehow we lived through most of that. But I've seen blogs help people in ways that, I imagined couldn't be any greater. And then listening to you just now say that some of these have had an impact on you, it reinforces what I thought about them. It's just such a very valuable and honest thing when people are willing to share like that so that somebody else can see it. And now you're part of it too. You do it as well. So I think you do it as well as anybody. So congratulations. Very well done.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This is such an honor.
No,
I can't thank you enough for this opportunity.
You are very kind to say that. This is just, you and I are just talking on the phone. It just happens to be recorded and a bunch of people are going to hear it. That's all.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I got nervous at a couple parts.
No, you were great. You were 100% fantastic. Your voice sounds clear. You know what listen, I love talking to people about their lives because, like I said to you at the beginning, no one knows your life better than you. And if you're willing to talk about it, the answers are just incredibly, they're valuable in ways you can't even imagine. So you're going to have helped people with what you did here today, again, in ways you're not going to completely understand. So really well done. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording and then say goodbye nicely and like people. Hold on one second. Hey, you can check out Ella's YouTube channel at youtube.com/beating-type-1. And definitely find her on Facebook. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to both of those things. Thank you so much, Ella, for coming on and sharing. Seriously, I don't even know what to say. It's just really amazing of you to come on and tell this story. Thank you, Dexcom and Omnipod, for your continued sponsorship of the show. Dexcom.com/Juicebox, myomnipod.com/Juicebox. The links in your show notes or Juiceboxpodcast.com. MDI users, if you did not hear episode 174 with the people from InPen, go back and listen. InPen makes an insulin pen that, combined with their smart app, gives you a ton of the functionality that insulin pumps have. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for the great reviews on iTunes. The podcast continues to grow because of you and your sharing. Thank you so much. I'll be back next week with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.